Being forgetful is nothing extraordinary for people who are aging, facing hard times, or are simply distracted. It's not unnatural for a person to find it difficult to recall certain events or things. After all, it happens to all of us. However, once in a while, someone might have an episode of poor memory that could lead to unforeseen consequences. These consequences can be comic, surprising, or even injurious and lethal. There are quite a few examples of major blunders caused by memory fails, from epic password fails resulting in financial fraud to people ending up receiving brand new cars that haven't even been released by the companies yet. Briefly put, a lapse in one's memory can set unbelievable events into motion. Here we've put together a list of all the best times when people's forgetfulness led them into situations they could not have predicted. Before we get started, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe and click the notification bell for more such amazing content. Number 12. Mayor forgets to turn his microphone off. Open and transparent governance is the motto of this Georgetown mayor, Dale Ross, but nobody had imagined him to unknowingly take this up a notch when Ross forgot to switch off his microphone in what we'd call a pretty vulnerable moment during one of the Georgetown City Council meetings. Dale was wearing a live microphone in the bathroom and was unaware of it being functional at the time. While the mayor was oblivious to the situation, his peers in the council were being amused by the sounds from the restroom. It truly was difficult for anyone to hold back their laughter, and let's have it, who wouldn't be amused by these circumstances? Even though Mayor Dale Ross claims that he's not embarrassed by the internet's reaction to this video, he sure is surprised at how quickly it went viral, but we all know he must have been a tad bit embarrassed. He claims that moments like these are what helps the average person and voter relate to him. After all, when nature calls, one has to comply. It was quite generous of him to take this matter lightly. Not everyone is known to react this way in similar situations. If you look at the video, you'll notice that the meeting was progressing normally until the mayor got out of his seat, walked from the range of the live stream, and about half a minute later, the entire room could hear the man urinating and flushing it. Silly mistakes like this, however, only add a little bit of much-needed comedy in the workplace environment.
We also would like to...
Whoops. Uh-oh.
Number 11. The guy who forgot his whole identity. When an American man was found naked and injured in 2004 without any identification or possessions, he assumed the alias Benjamin Kyle. He was discovered next to a garbage bin behind a fast food restaurant chain in Richmond Hill, Georgia. You'd think that once Benjamin was in better health and care of the authorities, he would either remember something or at least find out about himself from the national databases. But that didn't happen as quickly as you'd think. For the next 10 years, both Benjamin and the authorities were unable to figure out who he was, where he came from, and what exactly had happened to him. They used all possible means, including searches, publicity on the print and electronic media, you name it. Kyle did state that he felt like he remembered certain details of his last life, like his name, which he seemed to be sure was Benjamin, and his birthday, which was August 29th. He also said it was possible he'd worked in a restaurant because he knew and understood how the machines and equipment were operated. After a painfully long time of waiting, the mystery of his identity was finally solved, thanks to progressive and advanced genetic technology. His name is William Burgess Powell, and he was born in 1948. While this information solves a lot of problems, it still fails to fill in the gaps in his life history. After being diagnosed with amnesia, Kyle spent all his resources and energy to find his family, and finally the efforts paid off, as he was able to locate biological family members. This breakthrough led Kyle to acquire his social security number, get a job, and get to know his family better. Number 10. This guy threw out Bitcoin. This man may not look like he's incredibly rich, but wait till you hear this. He was the owner of a laptop containing $100 million worth of Bitcoin and lost his laptop at a Newport dump site in Wales. That's one heck of a blunder, we must say. The Welsh IT worker James Howell states that he accidentally threw out a hard drive full of Bitcoin, which according to him is now worth more than $100 million, and that's exactly why he's battling the authorities to dig it up. Ever since he realised what a huge mistake he made, James had been fighting the city council for a permit to dig up the debris to search for his hard drive, which contains over 7,500 units of the cryptocurrency. What a pity that it's buried below thousands of tons of waste and garbage. James Howell claims that he has several investors lined up to finance the dig and is even offering a 10% cut in exchange for the permit. While according to James, the council has no logical reason to prevent him from digging up the garbage, the council disagrees as it would cost them millions of dollars and could be hazardous to the environment. James began mining Bitcoin in the year 2009 and it was worth a good few £1,000s when he threw it out in 2013. But with the recent spike in its value, James is willing to pay any price to acquire that laptop. Number 9. Ice fishers forgot to check the lake. In pretty much every place that has a frozen body of water, you'll find a bunch of people passing time by ice fishing. It's quite a popular hobby in cold regions, but this hobby can be quite dangerous if you forget to check the water thoroughly and the weather conditions properly. Like this group of Russian ice fishermen who returned from their ice fishing trip to find their cars sunk halfway under the frozen waters. They'd parked their cars on the ice and without a reasonable distance between the cars. The extreme temperatures and inappropriate parking led to a domino effect, as when the ice cracked under one car, they all ended up in the lake. It would interest you to know that in Canada, multiple incidents have been reported of people and vehicles falling through the ice into the water. Even though officials issue warnings every year, someone somewhere manages to sink their car in a lake or a pond. Once the vehicles are underwater, there's no way they can be retrieved until the summer season arrives and the ice melts, leaving the owners stranded without a vehicle. But don't expect the vehicle to return in spick and span shape, as they most definitely will be ruined, and there's a good chance insurance might not cover it. Number 8. Car dealerships forgot their manners. In this video, you see a delivery man who's an employee at a pizza joint in Westport, Massachusetts. The two co-workers, a cashier and a manager, have confirmed that the video shows an interaction at the nearby car dealership, the staff of which had ordered pizza. While the total bill for the pizza and drinks is around $42, the dealership workers gave the delivery guy $50 in the form of two 20s and two 5s. The office workers wanted him to keep all $50, so he left $8 richer. Although it should have been the end of the story, it isn't, because a while later the office workers called the pizza delivery guy and forced him to return the change from the purchase, leaving him with no tip. It must have been in a super awkward situation, and the office workers should be ashamed for not tipping. This kind of practice, however, isn't new to the dealership, as their online reviews were as bad as their behaviour. In addition, the dealership website collapsed, and this misfortune forced an apology out of the office workers for their maltreatment of the pizza delivery guy. Number 7. Salesman forgets to check promotion. When Ford Bronco Sports delivery began at the end of last year, no one could have guessed that this Florida dealership would make such a silly mistake. They sold a demonstration vehicle to a customer, but once they realized what they'd done, obviously they asked the customer to return it. Adam Sidoti had traded in his Volkswagen Jetta, and after putting some money in, bought the new Bronco Sport compact crossover from the local Tampa Bay Ford dealership. He stated that the Ford Bronco has always been his personal favourite, and his wish for an upgrade was granted when he put down a down payment of $2,500, signed some papers, and went home with a new 2021 model Ford Bronco Sport. Unlucky for him, the next day the car dealership approached him and demanded that he return the car. That was 3 days before Christmas too. The person who had sold the Bronco wasn't supposed to do so, and the latest model Sidoti had acquired by mistake wasn't supposed to be in the market for another 4 months. The car he took was a display model, and the dealership gave him only 3 days to return it. But Sidoti wasn't going to let this go easily. After all, it wasn't his mistake. So he contacted the press, and the news blew up. This story became so famous that eventually the dealership allowed him to keep it. Number 6. Farmer loses his sheep. This poor merino ram was found roaming alone in the Australian countryside, and one can assume it had been living this way for a long while, looking at the amount of fleece it had grown. Unfortunately, these sheep cannot shed their fleece and need to be sheared, otherwise it continues to grow. This ram was in dire need of help. It was found by rescuers who named it Bar Rack. A sympathetic citizen had found it wandering around alone while walking by and reported it to the local animal sanctuary. Once more people found out about it, Bar Rack got pretty famous. It's important to know that for merino rams it's not very healthy to live in isolation from their herd with thick and heavy overgrown wool. So when the sheep was finally taken to a sanctuary not far from Melbourne, the experts were able to relieve the poor sheep from its 75-pound burden. This expensive fleece then ended up becoming the raw material for sweaters and socks. The walking had preserved his hooves, but the wool was getting in the eyes and had to be cut down so he could see better. Bar Rack must have been one perseverant sheep, as we all know most would not have survived similar circumstances. Number 5. Scam woman gives away wrong ticket. This two-time lottery winner accidentally gave away a winning lottery ticket to someone, and to say the least, she regrets it. She's even offered to split the money halfway if the person who took the ticket would own up to it. To put this in perspective for you guys, this woman had won $1 million while playing a lottery, and her story went viral. But then she drew national attention for another win. This time it was for a jackpot of $260,000, but accidentally gave the ticket to a man who was asking for help at a convenience store in California. The man, however, claims he gave the woman money to buy him a ticket, and it wasn't a donation on her behalf. The woman stands strong that the man pressured her and took advantage of her when she was standing in front of the man in the line at the store. She decided to give him $100 and accidentally ended up giving him the winning ticket. However, later an inquiry resulted in the decision that the woman would not receive the winning money. This investigation was carried out by the California Lottery Security and Law Enforcement Division. Number 4. Japanese banker forgets to double-check his work. The head of the Tokyo Stock Exchange had to resign when he made an enormous trading error that resulted in damaging the confidence of people in Asia's largest stock market. The president and 2 other senior executives apologized to the nation for the confusion caused by their error. The TSE's trading system failed to block the mistake, but it all happened due to human error. This entire mess was caused by a keyboard error made by an employee who only intended to sell 1 share, but the sales order ended up being more than 40 times greater. The trader tried to sell 610,000 shares at 1 yen. Another trader tried his best to cancel the order 3 times, but the exchange was firm on the rule that it doesn't cancel transactions even if they're made by mistake, so the stock exchange processed the order, and by the end of the day the security team had lost around $225 million. Number 3. Guy forgets he parked in a storm. In the crazy snow and cold of 2016, this car left in a parking lot near Lake Erie caught the public eye, as after a while it became an ice cube. The owner had probably decided to leave the car parked overnight to avoid driving in dangerous weather, but how could he have predicted that Mother Nature would turn his car into a popsicle? A plan was made to liberate the car from the ice using hot water and some local help. The vehicle was finally freed and taken to an auto body shop to thaw. So the owner did get the car back, but its story lives on thanks to the internet. Number 2. French engineers forgot to measure railway. This huge mistake by the engineers resulted in many angry French people missing their train and in turn their work. Because of this, the railway operators had to modify 1,000 stations as they discovered that the 1,860 new trains they had ordered were too wide for the platforms and tracks. These trains had cost them around $21 billion, but the state-controlled railway operator had given the incorrect dimensions to the manufacturing company. The newly designed trains could not get into the stations, and 1,300 stations were found too narrow for use. A spokesman did confess that they discovered the problem a bit late, but France did manage to correct some 300 stations to reduce the brunt of the bad press. Before we disclose number 1 on this list, here's an honorary mention. If you ask the truck driver of this truck how good he believes he is at his job, he'd have claimed that no one could be better than him, but facts state otherwise. Now, we can't say for sure if this happened due to his inexpertise or just a poor choice. This log truck ended up in the water somehow, and we're sure that taking it out won't be an easy task. With such accidents occurring often, we believe the truck driving industry should pay attention to the health, working hours and salaries of their drivers. Number 1. Russian pilot forgets to secure the door. It's no secret that things like plane equipment, passenger luggage and even human stowaways fall from planes quite often. But this situation is pretty unique, as when this plane took off in Siberia, it rained precious metals, including gold. The plane was refueling in Siberia, after which it flew off, and suddenly the supposedly secured cargo door flew open, letting out a treasure worth $368 million. People even found gold 16 miles from the takeoff location, and the area had to be secured. The plane was forced to come back and land at the airport. However, from the 9 tons of gold, platinum and diamonds in the cargo, only 200 or so gold bricks were picked up from the tarmac. It was reported that strong airflow from the takeoff partially tore the hatch off the cargo. Some would predict that this wasn't a mistake but an elaborate plan to get the gold out of the plane so it could be taken. True or not, this sure would make a great plot for a movie. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss more of these. See you all next time.